Hi, this is Marlene, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Whether you're watching a video or listening to a podcast, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. Links to videos or MP3 files can be found on MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Go to MarlenePardo.com for information on new book releases. I narrate several podcast series that can be found on major podcast platforms and can also be listened to via Alexa, Sonos, and other home systems. Look for Supernatural Storytime for scary storytelling, Nightshade Diary for classic horror and adventure stories, Stories of the Supernatural for interviews with different guests on the show. If you want to get noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit Strange Than Fiction Stories tab at MiamiGhostChronicles.com or find us on Blogspot. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Good? I'm doing well, as always. Here in North Florida, somewhere, adapting to the new environment because, like, as all my audience knows, people have been following me around for a while. Yeah, it's like everything else. Getting used to, we still have rainy season here in North Florida and everything. And it was funny because a couple of days ago, I went back down to Miami, and so you don't realize that it is a little bit muggier down in South Florida because of the subtropical temperatures, but you don't realize it till you actually do that. Anyway, yeah, I was going through one of those because remember, I was born and raised in Miami. So for me, being back there was like, oh my God, yes, this is, and this. And then all of a sudden the traffic hit and it was like, oh, I'm ready to leave now. Yes, it's, one of those nostalgia things where you only remember the good and overlook the bad. And like I said, I saw Miami basically grow up where the only thing out there was, the beaches, because of course everything was on the east. Everybody wants to be on the coast, the beaches, and then everything grew westward. And what was out there in a lot of these places were just dairy cows and farms and things. So I basically saw the city expand and grow to where it's at right now. And a lot of places that now are the middle of the city was like way out in the middle of nowhere, and it's not the middle of nowhere anywhere. But yeah, it was one of those things that, sometimes even when you go back to places that used to be what they call your old stomping ground or your hometown, you almost have like, what you might call it? Oh, did I do the right thing? Because you see these places, and I remember I went there, and then you have this moment, like I said, with the traffic thing, and I was like, yeah, I absolutely did the right thing. I absolutely did the right thing. Where it was, there was a point there, I'm telling you, where when you've lived in a certain place for X amount of years and you leave willingly, but not because you had to or not because you hate the place. Because sometimes people move and it's like, God, good riddance, I'm leaving, thank God. But that wasn't the case for me. So you have this nostalgia. And of course, like I said, the memories. And I want to say there's a transition period where you're like, like you basically you're homesick. It's really what it is. And then this is what happened to me during this last trip was I realized this used to be my home. There's a point where you think of that's home and this is the place I live at now, but that's home. That's it. I realized that now where I'm at right now, this is my home. Yes, a lot of great memories. I still obviously have family living down in that area, and everything, but this is my home. And let me tell you something, and it's a process. It's a process that you have to do in your mind where you actually like let it go. Like, okay, it was great, but where I'm at now is where I really truly want to be and the right place for me. So before I get to going on, and I know people are asking, how are the chickens? I've got to take pictures of the chickens. I had one of my roosters die. And I in one of the last video clips I did, I showed him outside. I called him Stumpy. And I pointed out that I kept him outside of the general pen because at one point he had bumblefoot, and I cured him, but he still kind of limped. And in chicken world, any rooster that's got a little impairment, he's going to get picked on big time by other roosters. So I kept him outside, and I've included him. About last week, I started seeing all these little signs, and after a while you pick up on them. And I tried this and that, but you already know that. And I lost him, but I'd had him like 5 or 6 years, and even then, like I said, he overcame bumblefoot, which, if you don't know how to treat it, that will kill a chicken. It left him a little bit, like I said, where he kind of limped a little bit, but he was okay. And then that happens with the chicken. So yeah, I lost him, but otherwise everything is good with a flock. And yeah, I'll see when I can get another video going, as far as so you guys could see all my chicks and my Rhode Island Reds and all those neat things, and yeah, all my what I call my clucks. So, but let's get on to the paranormal part. But before I get to the guest, because you guys must be thinking, okay, Marlene, like, hurry it along. Let me tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors, and this sponsor is named Freethinker Projects, and what they do, they're Florida based, and what they do, this is especially geared towards what they call the nomad lifestyle and the RVers and people that what I call the great life, where they travel around, sometimes for pleasure, sometimes for business, or both, but they need a location here in Florida to either keep residency, or this is just because where they want to be able to receive mail. And this is what Freethinker Projects does. They receive mail at a permanent address. They can forward it, the actual mail, to where you're at, or they can send you a copy of it, basically via email, where you could see what it looks like. They also have notary services, which they can do online with you. They also, if you want to open a corporation in the state of Florida, they can act as your registered agent. Because that's one of the things, like in most states, that if you're going to incorporate an entity, you must have a permanent address in that state, not a PO box or one of these, like a mail receiving place. It's an actual physical address. They can provide that for you too. So if you have any of those needs, or you just want to get information on rates, go to freethinkerprojects.com. Again, that's freethinkerprojects.com. Mail forwarding, virtual mail, remote online notary services, and also a Florida registered agent service. There we are. Okay, now let's get on. This is about this guest, and I know you guys are going to be excited because this guest has never been on the show before. And what's really interesting is that he's a fellow writer also. Okay, and this gentleman's name is Fred Williams, and he was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. His writing is influenced for his love of the Twilight Zone. Yay! The writings of William Gibson, George R.R. Martin, and especially Stephen King's Needful Things. He has a premiere novel, which has already been published in August of 2020, a year ago this month, which is titled Scramble, A Perfect Recipe for Math, Murder, and Revenge. We're going to be asking him about that. And he's working now on his next 2 works, and we're going to ask him Chrome number 22 and Love Unrequited. They're in the development stage, and we'll ask him about that. Okay, he's had a career in bodybuilding, modeling, telecommunications, and of course, he divides his time between writing, working on his spiritual growth, the gym, and he lives in Ventura, California. And we're going to ask him about all these, how he got to where he's doing, because he's got a career background in other things that are not writing. But of course, we're going to ask him the most important thing is, like I was telling him briefly before we started, I started going on about, all my necessary stuff was, if you're into Stephen King, you must have some love of the paranormal in you. And he laughed because we were on the same page. But help me to welcome Fred. How are you doing today? How are you doing today? Hey, Fred, can you hear me? Oh, my God. Let's see. Hello? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, now I can hear
I'm
you.
getting
Okay,
you in
can you?
bits and pieces. Oh, there you are.
Let me know if you can hear me. Okay. Okay. You know what? You're coming in a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're breaking up a little bit here. Let me try to move to another location, see if I can get a better signal.
Okay.
My apologies.
No, don't worry about that. Don't worry. I can edit anything. I'm good at that. Hi, everybody. To cut to the chase, poor Fred, he just could not get good reception where he was at, so we went ahead and we resumed the interview on the phone line. So for those of you who are watching the video, you're going to see him trying to get a good signal, but to no avail. So this interview takes off when we're back on the phone line. So Fred, let me ask you, considering that you were like, in your bio, I read that you were into Needful Things and Stephen King's. Before we get that, did you ever have your own personal paranormal experience which led to
I've
this?
had several. It's so interesting because it's one thing I've noticed in the media, and I'm not trying to call out race or nothing like that, but you never hear about people of color or black people having paranormal or supernatural experiences, and
Right.
I might be the first one. This might be groundbreaking news.
Here we go. Drum roll. Go for it. Let's hear it. I want to hear all of them.
But well, let me explain how it comes about. I'm gonna give some obvious ones, and I'm gonna let the viewers decide what happened. And I'm gonna give you this first one.
Okay.
And I'm sitting in this apartment here. I'm in California. This is a regular apartment, and these types of things happen.
Okay.
And we were sitting there watching TV, and my girlfriend, she kicked the shoes off, tennis shoes laying on the ground. There's a shoe sitting by our faux fireplace. It's a fake fireplace kind of deal, and it's a TV sits on it, and there's a shoe sitting there in the living room. And we're going about our business, and this is where it gets crazy because out of the blue, the shoe just falls over.
Okay.
We can't explain it. There's no wind. We got two cats. The cats are not nowhere near the shoe. Me and my girlfriend are on the couch. Shoe falls over. We can't explain it. Don't understand it. Okay, so we've had that experience. That was like one of the most okay, something's going on here kind of moments.
You must have looked at each other and said, "Did you see that?" Yeah, I saw that.
But I'm trying to be cool about it, but you can't be cool when something just randomly happens.
No, it's not. It's like you said, you can't even blame it on the cats.
Exactly. You can't. There was nothing around this shoe to make it fall over. The shoe fell, and I swear, anybody can call me after this call. I will tell you the same story and won't lie. I can tell you the shoe. I can look at it. That's what happened. But normally when we talk about paranormal with my experiences, it's always been an energy.
Okay.
And one of the privileges I've had being in California is there's a lot of things to do out here. So if you ever get a chance to visit, just come out and visit. You won't do it all in one trip, but there are certain places you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And the first place was Hearst Castle. I don't know if you ever heard of this place or not.
Oh, yes, I've heard of it. Yeah, I mean, I would love to go there, but yes, I've heard of that.
And I want to get your opinion on this when you go, because me and my girlfriend, we had the same opinion when we walked in there. There was a energy. There's a presence to places. And my girlfriend's better at it than I am, but we both can pick up when something's just not right about a place.
Sure.
And this place, the Hearst Castle, I will tell you, it just felt empty. And it resonated a certain emptiness. This thing it's a majestic creation. This gigantic. I mean, the guest houses are regular sized mansions. Whatever your reader wants to take away what that means. I'm talking 4 or 5 bedroom guest houses. And then you got this gigantic entity. But when we walked inside, it felt empty. We felt what the I want to say it was the spirit. You know how energy transfers, and
right.
The energy the owner had toward that place was just empty. It was an empty gratification. It was something was just not right about that place. I just felt like I felt alone. It felt cold. And you should have seen it. It was the building's even unfinished. It's not done.
Right.
And
That's one of the things I remember, that it was always like a work in progress kind of deal.
yeah, exactly. He never finished it, and I just think it was just something he was doing to try to prove something to somebody that I just don't think he needed to do. It's a beautiful creation. It's a beautiful
huge.
building. But your energy when you walk in there, it's like it's cold, hollow, mid-century castle kind of deal. It just felt cold. So that was one. That on a scale of paranormal, that's just kind of like a 3. But let me talk about Winchester Place.
You know what? I've been to the Winch because I have been to California because my son was stationed out in Coronado Island.
Yeah.
He was in the Navy. So, of course, like every mother, this is my youngest child.
Yep.
I bugged him frequently and flew out there.
Yeah.
Because, you know. So, anyway, I went out there. One of the times I did go, we're talking about the Winchester place, the one
Yes,
out there.
I am.
That one, yeah. That's
Now, prior to this, I was a skeptic of my babe because she always talked about how energy. She's an empath, and she picks up on energy like this. I mean, she's to the point where someone will give her a box, and her friend gave her a blender, and she literally, when she took the box, she looked at it and said, "It's a blender, isn't it?" And her friend lost it. I mean, she was like, "What? What's wrong?" And you know what the problem with that is? It's like, babe, can you give me 5 numbers and a Powerball? Come on.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's make this pay off, right?
Let's use this for benefit, you know. But Winchester Place was interesting because the energy was good, and you know the story about Winchester and how she was haunted by the spirits of everybody that died at the hands of those guns, you know, created by her husband's business, you know, Winchester rifle, right? Mm-hmm. But to me, the energy was good in that place, and I agree. You know, my girlfriend said the same thing, and I agree because she listened. You know, if you ever notice like ghosts in these movies, they haunt you. They cry out to you.
Right.
They want something. I think it's a calling of love, safety, and belonging. And she listened. It was a act of servitude towards these entities.
Well, you know what happens is that people don't realize that she operated that house like a farm. She employed a bunch of people there that basically worked for a year.
24/7.
Yeah.
She had people working on that house
and
for her.
Basically, she was like an employer. But they lived. Some of them lived like the place. People think that she had like an actual farm there. Like it was self-sustaining. So I mean, I know everything stopped when she died, but I would say people in a way almost lived out their lives, like you said, because they were there 24/7.
Yeah.
And so their energy's got to be there too, I imagine.
Definitely, and that was so interesting about it. You know, they got these doors that go nowhere. They got steps that go to nowhere, and you know, they tell you if you look in the windows, they got pictures. If you look in the windows, you can see her in the window. So you know, we did the tour. So we did the tour. We've heard stories about people going off into different places because they're following this guy that turns out to not even work there, 1, and 2 is actually like one of the workers that was building this building and adding these additions to it. But this is what we got. This is what I got. There was one room. I think it was in the attic. It was a yellow room. I'll never forget this. Mm-hmm. And the tour walked into this room. And up until this point, it was like tour, really nice house, kind of small, you know, kind of weird. You know, it was so worth the money. And we walk into this room, and my eyesight, I tell you, it was a dark cloud around my eyesight, and it felt like something descended upon me.
Really?
The hair rose on the back of my neck, and I looked at my girlfriend, and she was like, "Something's up in here."
Okay, yeah, I was like, yeah, everything is great till you come to this one room, huh?
Yep, but it wasn't threatening. It was not threatening. It was just like, I'm here, and thanks for coming, and welcome to my home. What do you think? Kind of crazy, right? That's the energy I picked up from Winchester Place, and I would love to go back there again. And you know, we're planning on revisiting. So that's now that's an experience to me is more of like I would give that a 5 out of 10 as far as getting freaked out and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go to my experience number 4, and feel free to cut me off.
No. You know what? Sometimes I'll tell you what. A lot of people don't realize that some of these places. I mean, it's been like a tourist place for like a long time, and at some point, what you do is you end up getting a lot, you know, sometimes the vibes of all the people that come and go, come and go, come and go. And then you get to that one room, like what you said,
Yep.
where all of a sudden
Yep.
it's like, oh, this is not the tourist, this is not the
Something
tourist
is
thing.
going, and I'm telling y'all, you know what? Look, I'm a skeptic of this. I was a skeptic until I felt that whatever it was, because not only did it affect my vision, it affected my sensations, and I was convinced. And
Yes.
we had a similar. Have you been to the Madonna Inn?
No, I have not been to the Madonna Inn. Tell me
Okay, the
about that.
Madonna Inn is somewhere. It's right. It's when you're going towards Hearst Castle. It's a place called the Madonna Inn, and it is a weird. It's a weird hotel. You have to stay there. It's renowned. It's just got these crazy rooms. Well, we stayed in this room, and the same feeling in this room, the same type of cloudy vision. You know, there's this black ring around everything I'm looking at.
Really?
You know, bubble vision coming around, and it's feeling on the back of my neck. And I want to say that because, you know, I think it depends on which room you stayed in. We stayed in this crazy room. And again, my girlfriend, she'll vouch for it. She said she felt something weird in that room. It was crazy. So.
And did you sleep there? Like you stayed there overnight?
Well, she was there in training. I came to visit, and of course, I left.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say because you.
I'm like, babe, good to see you, but I gotta
I was
get out
gonna. And after you finish, I'm gonna put in my own. That's why I asked you that. Oh, that thing about when you get to certain places that you know have a haunted reputation, and you kind of like take it with a grain of salt because, like you said, you're kind of like a skeptic, like, oh, you know what, this is just people like telling a story, until you get there yourself, and then you're like, oh, that's.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
This S word is real.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wait a minute. Maybe there is something. And wait a minute. I got to sleep here tonight? Why did I do this?
Yeah. But let me. Now, I'm gonna change the course of this conversation.
Okay.
And we're talking about supernatural. You know, we're talking about. And now let's think about this. There is a medium, right? When someone passes away, you know, there is a medium. I believe that still exists that we can use to communicate. Now I'm gonna go all the way off on this tangent because you know once I start about it makes sense, and my examples back this up all the way.
Okay.
We don't know what life is. Okay, we certainly don't know what death is. We don't know what comes after. You know, and the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. You know, we always wonder what happens in the afterlife. And my amazement and my study right now is we don't know what's going on right now. I mean, if you think about it, we are a group of atoms and molecules and cells that became tissue, that became organs, that became complete complex systems, all working in harmony in this entity wrapped up in another organ with skin. And within that complexity of itself, we have the human brain that is capable of using tools to survive.
Yes.
Now let's just stop there with the amazement right now. So I don't care what you tell me. You can't tell me we got this thing figured out because that right there is enough. So, you know, I'm going to say a little public service announcement. If there's anybody out there that has a confidence issue that feels like they're not doing anything in life, that they feel like they're not where they want to be in life, or they're admiring some celebrity, take a moment and stop and think about what it took for you to be right where you are to hear this message right now.
A lot of people overlook that.
They overlook it because they're so wrapped up in, I don't have money, I don't have a car, I don't have a house, I don't have a husband, I don't have a man.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Think about what you got. You got a system, that this complex entity that evolved to get you to this point, and we just forget. And then from that, we took these things and we built tools that help us beyond what our normal body can't do. So we can't see to the stars, we build a telescope. Yes. You know, we can't fly like a bird, we build an airplane. I mean, every time there's something that we can't do, we figure out a way to do it.
Sure.
And
And that brain,
that
that large brain that we got.
that large brain, and that's why I want to talk about the brain, because I think that the consciousness transcends dimensions. And I'm gonna tell you why, because I got 3 instances where I believe I was visited upon by ghosts.
Really?
And I'm gonna give
They
you the
visited
first
you?
one. They visited me, and our medium of exchange was dreams. I believe it. You can't convince me otherwise.
No, you know
I will.
what, Fred, I tell everybody, you know, sometimes when you have an experience that you can't produce proof for, doesn't, you know, you can't,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a photograph, you don't have a recording, you don't have, not even a witness sometimes, but you
Yep.
know what you
Yep.
experienced, and that's
That's
all
it.
it takes. That's all that
That's
matters.
all you need. And here's my point. What do you have to prove to somebody else for if you had that experience? That was your gift.
Yes.
So don't worry about if
But some
someone
people think
thinks.
that if they can't validate it or prove it to others, it's like nobody's
Yeah,
going to believe me. And it's like sometimes it doesn't matter if anybody believes you or not, because you know what you
that's,
experienced.
that's it. So let me tell you this story. It's so I had in 1998. I'm gonna tell you this story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dating this girl, and of course, I was 24 out of college, and I met her in 1998, and I said she's the one. And when I tell you I threw myself at her to be her suitor, I threw it. I mean, going over to her house. I mean, flowers were normal. I went to a
Right.
house and washed the car once, and her parents loved me to death, which was the perfect recipe for our relationship not to work out.
I was gonna, when you said that, I said, oh, that could either be really good or sometimes, unfortunately, it's like, oh, that's the one my
Here's a
parents
little
like.
bit of bad
Forget it.
advice. Let me give you some bad advice. If you want the relationship to work, piss the parents off.
Right? Yeah. It's like be the one where they say
Yeah.
you can't possibly be going out with him. Yes, we are. Yes,
Exactly. Be
yes,
that guy. Yeah, exactly. Don't be the nice guy, because you'll win the parents, but you'll lose
yes.
the girl. So that's just some bad advice for your audience out there.
Oh yeah, no. Believe me, that thing is like, yeah, I know exactly
Now,
where you're coming from.
so her mom, we built this great relationship. My name is Fred. She, it goes to Freddie. And I know when I'm in when people call me Freddie, and she is a dear friend to me. And unfortunately, life goes the way it goes, and we didn't work out. But she was always special to me, and she was overcome by disease, and her life was taken away. Unfortunately, I think it was 3 years ago at this time, or a couple years ago. Her life was taken away from me. But due to circumstance, she, my lady friend has moved on with her life, and I've moved on with mine. But there was just something special about the bond that me and this lady had.
Okay.
And I tell you, I never had a chance to say goodbye to her, but she has shown up in my dreams twice.
Oh.
And when I tell you she showed up, I knew who she was. She knew who I was. She called me Freddie. She had on a yellow dress. And when I saw that, there was no, getting spooked out. There was no, this is a dream. I knew what it was, because I knew the circumstances up to it. I knew my experience. And I knew after that dream, she appeared in my vision, in my experience, to tell me that it's okay, you move on.
Okay.
And when I tell you that's as real can get, it was her in her heyday. Like, it was her when I met her. It was
Right.
hair was brown, glasses good, in good health, in good spirit. When we go to this other side that we don't know, we don't carry these burdens that we have on this side. We don't
Right.
carry we don't know. So this is not an avenue to get judgmental about heaven or hell or whatever this is. Just my reassurance came that she's okay.
Right. That's what she was trying to tell you, was like, look at me
Let's
now.
tell her. Yeah. And not only look at me now, I'm still with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first experience with a ghost. Now I have another one
Go ahead.
that validates this experience. Now you want to hear this one?
Yes.
I had a friend, really close friend of mine. I met her at a bar, and her husband was the manager. So you know how that worked.
Yes.
He got the crazy eye on you, but I'm a goofball, so he had nothing to worry about. I wasn't trying to hit on nothing like that. We just kind of, we sitting at the bar. Why not talk it up. And I'm a knucklehead, so we got along great. So the relationship evolved with that, and we ended up, like we'll go to different bars, then go back to that bar. And public service announcement, we was good with the drinking. We wasn't crazy, but we just went out and had a good time. Got to say it nowadays.
I know. It's like, and we took an Uber or we walked, right? Okay,
That's right. Yeah. We're in the age of Uber now, so we got to use that. So use it to our advantage. But as long as I knew her, she was trying to have kids, and they used in vitro fertilization to try to get pregnant, and they kept trying, and they wasn't successful at this, and she was determined. And I'm a trainer. I used to be a trainer, and she used to be one of my clients. We would talk about it and stuff like that. And she was always inspiring to me. She always gave me a good message about never giving up, and always, when the chips are down, that's when you hang in. Kind of like what happened with us earlier, with the
right. Yes, you find a workaround.
Just hang in there. It's okay. It does what it does. And you just hang in there. And like friends, and she's in a relationship. We fell. We drift in and out. We drift in, we drift out, and life happens to everybody. So unfortunately, a few years later, I'm at work and I get a call, and it's one of our mutual friends, and she's crying, and I'm like, oh man, what happened? And she tells me she got pregnant and she had a baby, but she died during childbirth.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, you want to get hit square in the chest with something, get hit with that.
Yeah.
Get hit with, I don't know whether to be mad or to be overjoyed that she believed in something so much she was willing to die for it. Where do you stand with that when you get presented with that type? Someone that wanted kids so bad,
right?
Finally had the gift of childbirth, but is unable to enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's like almost like somebody that's chasing their own death. Of course, they don't understand that. That's
and there's two sides. Maybe it was something she wasn't meant to do. Maybe it was something that she was. Like you said, it cost her everything to get what she wanted. I didn't know where to stand with that. I didn't know where it wrestled.
Let me tell you something. That is so unusual because you don't hear about that. You think of the women dying in childbirth from like the old days, That's wow.
Yeah, it was a shock. It was like I said, going to her funeral was a conflict. It was happiness, and at the same time, it was utmost tragedy. At the same time, it just kind of really bothered me in my mind. But let me tell you what happened. Had a dream.
Okay.
And this was years later. This wasn't. This was I think I was in Missouri when she died. I think I had this dream out here in California. And when I tell you, I saw her. And let me tell you how I saw her, because this is why I know this wasn't just an ordinary dream. Her arms were around her man. Her man couldn't see her, but her arms were around her man.
Okay.
Like she was standing behind him, he was in a chair kind of, and her arms around her, and she was, how you walk up behind somebody and hug them?
Yes.
She was giving him that hug. But I could see everything. And all I saw and all I took away from that was, number one, she loves that man. Number two, she's right by his side. And number three, she is okay.
Yes.
And like I said, that's why I love to get on supernatural shows, because people have this typeset of ghosts and goblins and spooky, creepy things. No, ghosts are entities. They're energy. They're living beings. And when I see visions like that, when I see dreams like that, it just reminds me that, they're to be respected too.
Well, of course, when you think of it, this is a human soul, even if their body is dead, but it's a human spirit or soul, whatever you want to call it. And she was probably, you were a good friend, and she was trying to let you know, I'm good,
It's okay. It's okay. So it's a different way of looking at the supernatural. It's just, we only have a limited access to the visible wavelength of light. There's X-ray
Yes.
vision, there's microwave, there's infrared. There's all these things that we can't see. So
Right.
why would somebody cross out the possibility of ghosts? Why would you say that? Oh, there ain't no such thing as ghosts. Are you kidding me? There's so much stuff that we don't know.
But I think a lot of people that say that also are kind of scared.
Yeah,
That's their real true reason. And,
definitely.
it's like if I say it enough times, it'll make it so.
Yeah, exactly. I'll convince myself, and it's like you what's the line? You urinate on your leg and tell yourself it's raining.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you, this, and told the story before. I have an aunt who's like that. She's always, all her life, she's been one of these no nonsense people. There's no such things as ghosts and all that. You're all crazy, and you brought up that subject, and she'd be like, oh, come on. And one day, this was a few years ago, she starts telling the story how when she was a little girl, and she was in school. She was attending this very old school in Cuba, which is where my family's from. And this
Wow.
this was one of these old when they have the convent and the church and the school is all a big giant building, but this was like a few hundred years old. It was a really old building. And she's like 6 years old. She was in first grade. And at that time, they had, they have the girls were all in one class because the nuns would just teach the girls, and the girls would be all in one classroom. And I'm going to make a point about this. And she says she's sitting at her desk, and she looks all of a sudden to the doorway of the classroom, and she sees a little boy dressed as an altar boy.
Oh, wow.
And first of all, there was no boys on that side because, like I said, this is where the nuns would teach the girls who were being sent there. Okay. Plus, he was dressed like an altar boy.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that he had this really sad look on his face. And he was just standing there in the doorway of the classroom. And then she looked away and looked back, and he was gone.
Yep.
And she's a little, and of course children don't they don't question things at that point.
Right.
To her I just saw this really sad looking altar boy who I'm thinking, what is he doing here? And then I look away for a second and he's disappeared. And I remember when she told me that story, I was like, oh my God, you saw ghosts. And she looked at me with this face like, yeah, I kind of know that. And I'm like, but you walk around all the time. Everybody that brings up that subject, you poo-poo them and you tell them they're crazy and there's no such thing. But you saw one. And she just
Right.
she did one of these, we're not going to talk about this anymore. She switched the subject and she went to talk to somebody else. And I was like, wow.
Do you see that there's what's the fear? I mean, let's embrace it. Do we have enough mental capacity to acknowledge that we can't see everything?
Well, the thing is this, it's not like, at that age, you don't have enough, at 6 years as a child, in other words. She recognized in herself, as a child, she wasn't seeing, and she said it was a very solid looking, she thought it was a real boy. It wasn't like, a trick of the light. So she knew that at that age, you don't try to fool yourself when you're 6 years old. It's like,
Exactly.
so she knew that what she had seen was what she thought was a real boy. So it wasn't like I was making it up.
Yep.
And but yeah, again, some people choose to I'm just gonna pretend that doesn't exist.
Yep.
And
That's crazy.
Of course
crazy.
it is. And then you ask yourself, Fred, how many of sometimes those ghosts are those people that think that there's no afterlife, and then they die, and they're like, "Hey, what happened? I thought this was it. I thought there was nothing else."
That's the thing about it. And I'm not. I don't want to. You said something very valid, and I don't want to deny people's experience.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm trying to say is, our beliefs get us to a certain point.
Yes, of course.
And there needs to be a constant evaluation, reevaluation of our belief system. And it's like, for you to shun away something so obviously that happened to you, instead of saying, what did he want? What did that boy need? What was going on with that? Because here's my question. What do ghosts want? I know what ghosts want. They all want the same thing that we want. They want love, they want safety, and they want belonging. Everybody on this planet, I don't care what side of the spectrum you are on, in life, after life, we all crave the same thing: love, safety, and belonging. And I bet you that little boy reached out to her pure soul that was unfiltered with bias and said, "Hey."
Yeah, you can see me.
Hey, hi.
You can see me. You can see me. Of course, and they say that a lot of people that do that, they say children don't block this out because they don't have these filters of that's not supposed to exist.
Exactly.
You
'Cause
just see it.
I was taught that no, ghosts aren't real.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. A lot of I've had guests who have described childhood experiences, and a portion of them have told me, "Oh, you know what? I brought it up to my family, and they kind of like, you know, basically told me, oh, there's no such things, and I know sometimes parents or family members are trying to protect their kids from being the weird kid. Oh, don't talk about that. You know, don't bring that up."
Yep. And it's so sad because what if they had an open mind to receive that experience that they had, and just to ask a question? Okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
How can I help you? How can I be of servitude? I mean, you have this. Let's go back to the Winchester. I mean, she fully embraced. There was no. She knew what she didn't care. All right, I'm hiring staff. I'm gonna use this money. We're gonna appease this, you know. And
Right.
what if we all had that open mind towards these entities that choose us? You know, just like an idea. I think of ghosts in the same term as ideas. Ideas choose you. I think ideas are universal. Have you ever had an idea for something and you was like, "Oh, that's crazy. Won't nobody ever need a phone that doesn't have a cord? That's
Oh,
ridiculous."
my!
And
You
all
know,
of a sudden, somebody invents this thing. You're like, "I thought of that." Well,
yeah.
you didn't actually think of it. The idea came to you, and you didn't do anything about it. So I believe that ghosts, just like ideas, they pick people. And they pick people because they're open at that moment to receive it. And they
Sure.
trust.
And that right there is because a lot of people get ideas and then they talk themselves right on out of it.
Talk them out of it, yeah.
They're like, no.
Because they believe it's so crazy for them to do something that they don't even try. And they talk themselves, like you said, they talk themselves right out of it. It's unbelievable.
Right. It's like,
That
oh,
idea
you know,
came to you.
or you know, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It's sometimes, you know, just because it's simple. Oh,
Yep.
if it's simple, then sometimes, you know, when you get like you get that great idea, and it's almost like, man, that's so simple. It can't be good. It's too simple, and they drop it. People let it go, thinking. I tell people, you know, once upon a time there was such a thing. This is for my older, as a pet rock, and most people think, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, you remember the pet rock? I
Pet
remember
rock.
that. I remember.
A pet rock.
Now, hold on. Before we go any further, you present a little bit of, I don't want to use the word shame, but there is a hesitancy to acknowledge the things that we grew up on. And
No, because you know what? I've had people
honor
that sometimes people don't, you know, like fads, you know, sometimes they fade, and only if you've lived X amount of years do you understand it. You know, like there's people, you know, there's people that like well, you just said that thing about the corded phone, you know, that once upon a time, you know,
that was our technology. That was our iPhone. I'm sorry, the Lego phone or the Mickey Mouse phone, that was our iPhone. So I walk in with my chin up when I talk about my past, my Atari. I'm proud of it.
Yes, well, you know, because I think also that as the years have gone by, all these things have picked up speed. And it's like you know, once upon a time there was no internet, and there was corded phones, and in the 80s the answering machine was a big deal.
Ooh, you remember that answering machine?
Yeah, it was like, what was it? The other day I was watching some movie, I can't remember what, and it was like, oh my God, they had the answering machine.
Remember three-way calling where you had to click and you could ask somebody else?
Yeah, that was like a big deal, and call waiting and all the, you know, I tell everybody, you know what? When I was growing up, there was one phone, and it was in the kitchen, and that was it. And it was, and if people called and nobody answered, because that's how, you know, nowadays people call you on the phone. If you don't answer, they go, Why didn't you answer the phone? I said, once upon a time, there was one phone, you know, usually maybe a couple, but I mean, as far as a landline. And if people didn't answer right away, nobody got mad.
Nobody got mad. I'll see you later. Yeah, exactly. Give me a call. Yep.
Or they call you later. They called you the next day. And you didn't have to worry about an answering machine. Like it was like, you left me a message. What message? Don't worry. Unless you catch me and talk to me. All right, there you go. But a lot of these, when you talk about all these different, I know that I bring it up because a point of reference because a lot of people don't realize that once upon a time, certain things that are very commonplace now did not exist at all.
Exactly.
At all.
Exactly. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I just asked him the question. I said, people, the whole deal now, and this is my biggest message now, and it's bigger than my book. The message I want to give people is it is okay to be okay because your okay is luxury for somebody in the 1800s. If you just think of the things that you have,
oh sure.
Now you might not have a Bentley, you might not have a Ferrari. You see it all the time. They plaster this stuff on social media, and they plaster this stuff on TV shows. Like this is the aspiration that we all need to work towards, which is a lie. And I'm here to dispel the lie. If you take your tiny starter home wherever you live,
yes,
take it out of time and plant it in the 1800s, they would set you on fire for witchcraft. By God, she has an instant food heater upper. Oh, my God, that is witchcraft.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. People don't realize that. When these people...
Microwave? Are you kidding me?
Oh, it'd be like... No, people would kill for that little house. I'll tell you, that tiny house. I'll tell you that much.
I can talk into a square in my hand and communicate with somebody that lives in Florida. That is witchcraft.
Yes, those,
I just think people just forget, and they get so caught up in what everybody else is doing that they don't stop. Like, it's so funny where you get on an airplane and people are mad. They're mad about the plane taking off late. And they're mad because the person in front of them is taking all day to put their luggage up in the rack. And I'm sitting there like, you mean to tell me we have overcome gravity?
Yes.
And I can go huge distances in this bus with wheels.
Yeah. Yes.
You're mad about the internet not working. Are you kidding me? I don't think people have that awe of things no more. It's just the expectation of what's next and what's better. And we got to get out of that and just realize if you take yourself where you are now and plant yourself any other time in life, you will realize, like, oh, my God, I'm doing pretty damn good. Pardon my French.
Right, but see, this is the thing that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when you haven't lived long enough, you have no point of reference as far as how much advancements have been made.
Right.
I'm going to give you a perfect example. Nowadays, you can research anything on the internet, and you don't have to move from your desk. Basically, you're there. Before, if you were researching, I'm going to say a book, anything, a term paper, whatever. You had to hope that you had a decent library, either in your hometown or if your school. Or, research was painstaking because...
Microfish? Remember the microfish?
Oh, God, yes, I do remember microfish. And that was a big thing, because before microfish, everything was paper. And microfish was like, that was those little squares. People don't realize are those big machines, like, to...
Yeah.
Yes, all those things existed.
So,
and even then, that was painstaking. I mean, they could point you in the right direction, but you still had to sit there and scan through a lot of things to find a particular...
That was the effort and research. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yes.
to tie this around, because we're talking about the supernatural, and, we talked really good about ghosts. And now I want to talk about zombies.
Oh, go ahead.
You don't have... zombies are... If you walk around right now, go outside, and you see anybody walking down the street, not paying attention to traffic, with this device in their hand staring at it, you have a zombie. There are people that just don't know. I don't understand it.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yep.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Have you seen it? It's scary.
Yes.
Like they'll just walk, and they're not looking, and they got the headphone. They got both headphones on with this phone, and they're just walking and not paying attention to anything going on. That's a zombie to me. And
Yes.
you know, I know I want to turn the subject back because I love Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I just grew up on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of Walking Dead, but I'm old school. That Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I'm a Return of the Living Dead. You remember when Michael Jackson was a zombie and he came out?
Right, my God, Thriller. That was like, no, and wait, and it's not only that they come back; it's that they want to eat you or your brains or something like that. It wasn't just the
They want
coming
the brains,
back
yeah,
from the
they want
dead
the
part.
brains. Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, yeah, we got zombies right now. You just go outside and look at them.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I mean, there was a commercial. I can't remember. They don't play it anymore. I can't remember now what product where it was showing people like running into the doors or stepping into water. I mean, because you're so caught up, or stepping in, like almost getting run over. And I'm like, that's very factual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That's very factual as far as
They're caught up. They're just walking. They're going from one thing to the next without paying attention to what they're going to. And we do this all the time. And, you know, iPhone 11, they trade in an iPhone 11 for an iPhone 12. Why?
because and let me tell you, those things aren't cheap either.
No, they're not. And they're not paying attention to how all these things are adding up. So you got to have the latest car. You got to have the latest phone. You got to have the latest fashion. Have you ever noticed fashion? Fashion, I just don't understand how someone can declare something in style and then less than a year later, the same person will write an article and say, "Oh my God, it's so done. It's so out of
Well,
style."
you know what?
And
Because there's a lot of money to be made if you keep your if you keep your no change in especially for women. I'm going to say, because men are not that bad, but women, if there's no change in styles, let me tell you, there's a lot of industries that are out of a lot of money. Whether it's the way you cut your hair, to what you're wearing, your shoes, your handbag. Oh yeah.
I am encouraging women, and I'm a guy, and let me tell you something. I don't know a woman's experience, but I am encouraging women as a man to stand up and go against that current of trying to find external gratification from somebody through some physical means, whether it's a car, whether it's a clothes, whether it's surgery. Now, I like I said, I'm a guy, so I have no business.
No, but you know what? I hate to say, but men are. Once upon a time, men were kind of immune to it. I mean, even if you look at men's clothing.
Yep.
But lately, I want to say that men have been dragged into it to be just as bad as women when it comes to
it's just as bad. And men
the
have
fashion
to deal
industry.
with
Yeah.
Yeah, men have to deal with status. I think women have to deal with their looks, and that's why I love getting on these shows because I don't know who I'm talking to, and I just want to tell those people, you don't have to do those things. The only thing I encourage you to do is do it. If only you doing it is for yourself. Do not do it for a boyfriend. Don't do it for a husband. You do it because that's something you want to do, and that's where the only gratification will come that matters. You can't get it from outside things because you'll never keep up.
Oh no, you know what? And a lot of people find out too late because once they actually get it, they're like, "This is it." I thought I was gonna be like, what,
Yep.
I thought I was gonna be happier or whatever the case might be, and it's like, nah, it's not everything you thought it was.
Because men fight status, and I gotta have that discussion with them. I said, because my book, I haven't sold 1 million copies yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Yet, but I plan on selling 1 million. But let me tell you something: the satisfaction comes in getting it done.
Absolutely.
So don't look at the mountain peak. Look at the climb. Let's enjoy the climb. Let's enjoy.
But you know what, Fred? There's so many people. Mm-hmm. And we'll use the example of writing a book. Let's go with that. But it could be anything. It could be any project, whatever it is that people get so caught up with the enormity of it. And of course, when you're whether you're dreading it or you've been, how can I say, kind of a procrastinator, you think, oh my God, to do this, forget it. They're their own worst enemy, and they never even attempt it. They talk themselves out of it, or they make up all the excuses, Wow,
That's
that's
correct.
going to need a lot of time, and I don't have the time now. Or, hey, this is
Yep.
going to, and they never start it.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and sometimes it's like if it doesn't even have to be that somebody's giving you a deadline. Let's say it's just your own internal deadline, but even
It's
if
your
you work
own
on it a
deadline.
little bit at a time, like you said, the satisfaction of actually accomplishing it
Yep.
does a lot
Yeah.
for
Let me
your
tell you something.
for the way you see yourself as far as your competency.
It does, and people have to get out of this idea of everything being instant. I love
Oh,
microwaves because I can
oh,
heat
sure.
my Tostitos up or my pot pie or whatever. But
Yes.
Scramble, the book that I just wrote, I wrote it in 2005,
There you go.
and I have been refining it. I've gotten help on this thing to make it better, and I kept.
Hmm.
And one thing that held me back was people's opinion. And in
Oh,
2017, I said, to hell with, like you said, it comes when you're older. I said, to hell what people think. I'm going to do it. And
yes.
whoever I get on my team, that's who I'm writing to. And people, it's a process. And you don't write a whole book. You write 1,000 words at a time, or you write 500 words.
You know
You
what?
just
There's
keep
oh my,
doing that, you know.
there's a writer. God, what's his name? What's his name? It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a real quick story. There's a writer to
Mhm.
writer kind of like this guy. He's written a bunch of books. As a matter of
Mhm.
fact, you know that a lot of these movies afterwards authors will make like little stories like Star Wars. Well, he wrote a couple of, after Star Wars was big, he wrote like short
Yeah.
stories about the Star Wars,
The
characters,
canon.
whatever.
Yeah.
But he's
Yep.
written a load of books. He's written um, screenplays. I mean, the guy is
Yep.
he's done very well in the writing. And
Yep.
as a matter of fact, and he's written a couple of books about the writing. And I started reading, and he says, the first couple of times that I submitted a short story, it got picked up right away. And then I realized, wow, I can make money. So he says he started getting into the let me read or get instruction on how to do it the right way, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And he says
Yep.
once he did that, he wasn't selling a story. He says once he got caught up, with, and by this, don't get me wrong, you do need some type of, knowing how to structure a paragraph. But basically, he said that when he took all these classes where, do this way, and you have to do it that way or describe it this way. He says all of a sudden he stopped selling his stories.
Yeah.
He stopped selling his stories, and he says, and I looked at my first couple of stories, which I had. He says I wrote those things in a couple of days. Like, in other words, he proofread them a couple of times, and he sold
Yep.
them right away. And he says, wow. And he says, once I realized that I was overdoing it because I was trying to do what they're telling me, which is over
There it
critiquing
is.
it,
Yep.
it
Yep.
stopped. The sales came
Yep.
to like a sudden screeching halt.
Yep.
And
Yep.
he says, once I said, forget that.
Yep.
And he went
Yep.
back to, basic descriptions, just the way he wrote the first two. And then after that, he says, I ditched that where it's almost like let's complicate a process, which
Yep.
is because basically what a writer's doing is you're telling a story. All
That's
right.
it. Yep.
That, not everybody's going to be a fan, like you said. But
Right.
sometimes if you
Don't
get
worry
too
about
caught
the
up in like this and that, and oh my God, is there apostrophe here or whatever? It's like
He put once he started, because he was a free spirit at first. When he was just
Right.
writing for the fun of it, when he was having fun, he was a hummingbird.
yes,
And then
exactly.
the rules and regulations, and you can't do this, you can't do that,
Uh
you
huh.
shouldn't do this. It made it not fun.
You know
And
why?
once
Because
he-
it interferes
he
with
saw
the
it.
telling of the story. It
the
interferes with
story.
the telling of the
That's it.
story.
Tell the story. That's it. Yep. Yep. And there are people out there, and all they want to do is they read a story to see how many mistakes they can find.
Oh yeah,
And
I
they
know.
miss the entire message. And it's
Yeah,
like, what is he
exactly.
paying attention to?
Right. It's
You
to
know,
me,
so
it's like tell me, and I've read. I've been a reader all my life. As long as once I knew how to read, like when I was 7, I've been reading like whatever fiction,
Yep.
nonfiction, and I've read some.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say all, but I've read some books that are supposed to be masterpieces, or what? Oh, they're like, you must read this book, and it was like, they become so convoluted. There's like,
Right.
who the hell said this was a great book? It was like,
Yep.
hello, I
Yep.
could, unless it's a textbook and it's supposed to be, whatever, factual. It was like, okay, somebody owed somebody a favor here. Okay.
Exactly.
As far as who said this was a
Oh,
great,
favor.
who
But
somebody,
you
you know,
said
is like,
something
hey,
so,
you
so
you make
funny.
this say this is a great book or whatever. And
Mm.
it was like it was really disappointing, and I was like, man, and I slogged through it sometimes 2, 3 chapters, and I was like, okay, there's forget it. I'm not reading this. This is stupid.
We're our worst enemy because my girlfriend literally, I was at a restaurant with a mutual friend of ours, and when I tell you she shook me like a tree, and she said, "You're just as good as everybody else, but you just don't think you are. You are the
Right.
only problem." And that's what I'm trying to tell everybody. Whoever listens to my messages, you know, when I interview, don't let someone else who thinks they're an expert dilute you from being an expert. Expert is just a word that says,
Well, you know
all
what?
right, it might know more than you, but you might have something that they don't know either.
Of course, and
Yep.
you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a perfect example. J.K. Rowling. I'm going to give you a recent example. When she
Yep.
supposedly when she wrote that book, she was unemployed and she was a single mom. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, and she was turned away by a bunch of because this also remember when she came out with this book, the self publishing was not really, you know, in other words, you had to sell your book to some publishing house for them to pick up the, you know, publish it. And
Yep.
she got turned away by God's a bunch of different publishers, which I imagine they
That's
must
it.
felt like, you know, shooting themselves in the foot afterwards. But
Yep.
before she finally got, you know, picked up, and even then, I'm sure they just thought it was going to be a kid's book, you know,
Yep.
not
They didn't know.
anticipating what it was going. And she was basically an unknown, nobody author who had a great imagination.
Yep. 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 And let me tell you, you know, you touch on J.K. Rowling.
Mm-hmm.
I had 70, and I want to tell people this, 75 rejection letters. I got tired of it. I got tired of waiting for someone else to tell me I'm good enough.
Sure.
And when I made that decision to do it myself, the technology is there. All you have to do is work your ass off. The technology is there for you to do it yourself. Just work your ass off.
Let me tell you something people don't know. If you want to be a writer, start writing.
Yep.
Start writing, write a short story. Nowadays, as a matter of fact, what you pointed out, as far as that you don't need a publisher. You know, if you're waiting for that, hey, self-publish, or you know what? There's a lot of e-zines and magazines that take people, you know, like that you can submit a short story to them, you know, depending on what their subject matter is.
Yep.
And do it. And, you know, but that fear of rejection, Fred, that's a big, talk about ghost. That's a phantom people do not want to tangle with because it hurts.
And you have to confront that because here's what happens. Because people are so perfect, it's the worst word ever invented. Because people that strive for perfection, they will never get it done.
Oh, no.
And my book, I finally, the editor I work with, she said, you're done. Stop touching it. Because
yes,
I can do my book now and just start changing stuff, and it's done.
Yes,
the whole point is we are so trapped in a society that expects perfection that we have enslaved ourselves and put these chains on us to stop our momentum.
Let me ask you, now that you said your book, how did you come up with, what was the idea, the original idea, the seed that planted that story in your head?
I got 3 words.
Go ahead.
Kill them all. I'm not lying. That was. I wrote a book. Okay, this isn't my first book. All right,
just those 3 words, okay?
I'm gonna put this out there. This ain't my first book because I want people to hear this. I wrote a book in 2000.
Okay.
And I was sitting in Cancun. I said, "What am I gonna do in my life?" And I said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I said, "All right, write a book." And I had this idea of 3 stories and people and 3 different characters. They come together in one spot, and all hell breaks loose. That was the whole. If you ever, all my stories, they're going to follow the same format. I've evolved since then, but back then that was my plan: get 3 different people in one spot, and all hell breaks loose. So I wrote this book, but the problem was I was so. Remember what we were talking about? Should do this.
Mm-hmm.
I was so worried about. Well, Fred, you know you can't cuss because you know you're a Christian and you don't want to lead people astray, and you can't do too much violence. You can't write about sex. You can't write about this. You can't. And you remember what you talked about?
Yes.
Well, people will cant themselves out of everything.
Yes.
I wrote a book trying to please everybody else.
Right.
And it did nothing because I deserved it.
Yeah.
I deserved what I got from that book. Now, the story's good. It's a good little idea because it's so good, I took it and I'm doing something else with it.
Good.
But the lesson is, and I'm talking to writers, and I'm talking to anybody that's doing something, don't do something for somebody else. Do something that you're proud of and say,
Yes.
I wrote that. That's mine. I love it.
And be
So when
and
I
be
wrote
and be ready to deal with rejection if that's what it comes down to.
Don't worry about rejection.
Yep.
That's another human thing.
Yep.
We reject all the time. You either buy Chevy or you buy Ford, Nissan or Honda.
Yeah,
We reject all the
exactly.
time. Get used to it. It's okay. You'll be fine. So when I wrote this second book, I said I wrote the book for Christians. I wrote the Christian novel. Now I'm writing what I want, and I said I'm killing everybody. I'm not.
That's it.
I kill everybody in this.
Yeah.
And when I said that, my intention was nobody is exempt from this story, and that's what Scramble is. It is a perfect recipe of math, murder, and revenge. And there are so many twists and turns because I had fun writing this book. This is the story. I don't care if I don't sell one copy. I have fun writing this book.
Let me tell you something. Isn't that great that you almost like you know your characters you like them or but you know their creations and it's like almost when you're getting towards the end it's like wait a minute, I don't want to let go of the story because these characters they've taken on a life of their own. They've become three-dimensional.
Yes, they do, and they stay with you. They stayed with me from 2005 when I created them all the way until I knew I was going to publish this book. And they stay with you, and they're yours. And you care about them because you built. I had an author tell me, I used to be a cover model. I have a couple of books I'm on the cover of.
Hold on.
But,
hey, Slim, be quiet.
Haha, I love it. I got a cat named Paco. He does the same thing.
But, that's one of my little dogs, Slim, and she's like she sits under my chair, and then she's quiet, and then at the most inappropriate time, like little kids,
starts quacking. Yep.
Like doesn't fail.
But yep. She told me you know your characters down to the bowling average. You know their characters,
yes.
And I got to know my characters down to the bowling average. Now you don't put all that information in the
no,
book,
of course,
but that's for you to know when you articulate their intentions through your hand by writing
what
it.
motivates them and
What motivates you know that stuff, and it does translate.
Of course.
It does. So that's one thing I want to tell. Know your characters. When I used to go out, I would go out on Fridays, and I would get into one of my characters' mindsets. And that whole evening, I was that character. Now, I write about female characters, so one night I went out, and I was in the mindset. Now, I didn't dress like a female. Of course, I'm a guy. But no disrespect or no. But I was in her mindset, so I thought like her. I was like, what would she think about? What would she eat? What would she say to the waiter? What would she say to the doorman? I mean, what would she say to the person next to her? Would she talk? Is she shy? You know, I got into that mindset, and that's what I was saying. When you develop characters, you got to have a respect for them. And I disagree with people who say when their book doesn't work, start over with fresh characters. No, you birth these things from nothing.
Yeah.
Give them a new situation and write them through it.
You know what? And I've heard this from, because I do listen sometimes to different writers that talk about writing. And they say that if you ever come to the part of the story where everything just is like, where do I go? It says you need to put some trouble in there. You need to put a problem in there. In other words, you need conflict. If you're to the point where everything is like, now what do I do? You're lacking conflict. You got to throw something in there that shakes everything up.
That's it. And let me tell you another thing. Let the characters write the story. Yeah. All you got to do is dictate. Give them the situation. Right? My situation. I got a single mom named Ava. Trying to raise the world's greatest son. His name is Dazzo, D-A-Z-Z-O. She's trying to raise the world's greatest son. She ain't got the best job. She ain't got the best baby daddy, and she's doing what she can.
Right.
All you gotta do is write that situation out. Well, what happens when she get behind on her bills?
Yeah.
She takes a loan out with a payday loan company that charges 7% interest per day. Well, what happens when she can't pay that? Well, the CEO of the company is this loan shark drug dealer guy, and he wants his money.
Sure.
And he wants his money when he wants his money, not when you decide to give him his money.
Mm-hmm.
Deadly consequences for that. Write that situation. You ain't got to make nothing up. Write that situation.
Yeah, of
How
course.
you
God
feel?
God knows there's enough things that happen to people nowadays, you know.
That's it. It's easy. And deadly consequences. This guy's a drug dealer. He don't care. He wants his money.
Yeah.
And he you see that beautiful son of yours? Let me put a little trigger on a red light on him to let you know I got a scope on him from this building across the street. Now, you give me my money by midnight. I don't care how you get it. You just get my money.
Exactly.
Write that. That's all you have. Just sit back and take notes.
Yeah. That conflict that like you said, things and that is real life, you know, where
real life. We all get behind on our bills. We all got these people
Yeah.
calling us asking for our money. And we don't make enough. That's the reality. And I'm telling anybody that listens, don't worry about these celebrities that sit around all day. They got lucky. Life was good to them. And our life is the real life.
But you know what, Fred? I'm going to tell you, and you brought up the thing about the celebrities, and I know sometimes, you know, our culture is very celebrity-driven, you know, the fans. But you know what? And people look at their exteriors, and they think, like you just said, they got the perfect life. They got the money, they've got the house, they got the boyfriend or the girlfriend or whatever, you know, and of course, you know, all their paparazzi pictures, everything is beautiful. They look beautiful, but, you know, whatever.
Yep.
You know, unless it's a mugshot. But most of the time, they're... And you look and you're thinking, man, if I was in their place, I would be happy. My life would be complete. But then you hear these people, they commit suicide.
Ooh, I'm about to
They
say,
got severe drug problems or alcohol problems. It's like,
ooh,
and it's like, yeah, this is what they look like to the outside. This is the package. But inside, these people might be really, really unhappy, more unhappy than you could ever think of being. They just packaged a certain way because, you know, they've got publicists that say, hey, you know, we got to make you look this way and that way, and you know, you got to be in the public eye, but you don't know what's going on. As a matter of fact, I want to say a good portion of them are not really truly happy. They're far from it.
I think they are too, and there is like I said, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody that has mental health issues.
Oh, no.
I'm just trying to relate to someone that has this job, or life didn't turn out the way they planned. I just want to tell them that, you know, you're looking at these people and you think they got it going on, and they are hurting just like you, because life affects everyone. Because, like I said, who was the other guy? The guy that went around and ate food, and he took himself out. The guy that went international, I forgot his name. He was a food guy. He would travel.
Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain. There's another example. So even if you think you get your life to this level like these celebrities,
yeah,
you still gotta, the rubber still meets the road for them too.
Yeah, and he even had, I want to say he even had a child late in life. He had like a little girl. I mean,
That's it.
the people thought, okay, there's this guy, I think he used to have an addiction problem earlier in life, so he overcame it, obviously. He became this food chef star, you know. He had that program he had running was for years. And like I said, when you looked at it from the outside, you would think this guy's got it made.
Yeah.
And then
and
it's not what it seems.
They don't have anonymity. They can't go anywhere.
Oh, no.
They always have to be nice because there's a camera in their face.
Well, no, nowadays where everybody's got a camera, basically.
That's it. And you have a media that is looking for the first piece of dirt they can find on you to shut you down. They call it cancel culture. What happened to cancel culture? What happened to educating everybody? They ascend these people to God-like status because they have more.
Let me tell you something. But they put you up there, but the fall is long and hard.
Ooh, the fall is hard. Yeah, and it's not their fault. It's what we do to them, and it's us not looking at the values that we have.
Sure.
Quit looking at them. Look at what you got.
Inevitably, people do the comparison thing.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about when this conversation first started. There were so many coincidences that happened. First off, for this earth to be here. Second off, for us to be here.
Of course.
And look at those things and have gratitude for that.
What is it? That you're at the right place and time? You're at where you're supposed to be?
You are right where you belong. Exactly.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is, and it's just. But I'll tell you what, and I'm not going to say there's a lot of people that they waste a lot of time. Not even comparison. Let's take the celebrities out of the picture.
Yep.
They compare themselves to people, whether it's friends, family members, somebody around them,
Yep.
and they're always coming up short on the short end of the stick. And I want to, I'm going to be a little bit harsh here, but they start going into this pity party kind of mentality.
That's right.
And it's always like, I got the short end of the stick, because this other person, and it's like, you know what? Stop. This is, or you know how some people say, well, you know what? When I get that car, when I get that boyfriend, or then it's when it's going to be, and it's like, this is real life. This is your life.
Let me
Okay.
tell you something. You said something really good. You want to know what people do, because I used to do this. Your brain is wired to protect you.
Of course it is.
So every time you go outside of what's normal for your brain is going to do whatever it takes to get you back to love, safety, and belonging. So if you start looking at Bob over there and you say, oh, my God, look at Bob's physique. Bob is, oh, my God, such. And you say, I'm going to go to the gym and look like Bob.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing your brain is going to do? Your brain is going to shut you down because,
Yeah.
oh, man,
Oh,
you
yeah.
ain't going to like Bob, man. Because you know what? Because your brain is afraid of you doing something brand new because it wants love, safety, and belonging. So it wants to keep everything safe. It wants to protect you. So
Sure.
when you do something that's outside of that norm, your brain is going to act up. If people can get, like writing a book. Remember we talked about writing a book?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God, I want to write a book. Oh, my God, nobody's going to like your book. Your writing sucks. You have no idea. You're clueless, blah, blah, blah. Your brain will start and just start
Yes.
kicking all these things out. And then when we focus our attention on that instead of what we can do, we'll stop ourselves. If people can stop and have awareness and say, no, this is what we're going to do. I don't care how it turns out. I'm enjoying the process of this. This sounds interesting. I'm going to try it, see if it works, and I'm going to push this thing all the way to the end. I'm not worried about how it turns out. I'm worried about the process along the way.
Yeah, but you know what? And basically what you're talking about is your subconscious mind is the one that tries to, like, sabotage you, because basically that's what it tries to do.
There, you got it. Yep,
But you know
yep.
what, Fred? You pointed out something really important, and people think that, and I'm sure you've heard of it. You get, let's say a sport. Let's go with a sport. You ask somebody, hey, have you ever tried to do that? Yeah, but I wasn't good at it. Oh, well, how many times did you try it? Oh, a couple of times. It's like, who's good at something after you try it a couple of times? It's
Practice makes
practice.
the man.
Right, so a lot of people is like, what, do you think you're going to go, or like you said, they see somebody that does something, whether it's sports or performing or something, that they're really good at writing. Let's go with the writing. And you're like, man, I wish I could. And then you try it a couple of times and you're like, man, I really suck. This is horrible.
Now here's the problem with that. Here's what happens. This is what I tell people. We got to turn the TVs off.
Oh,
Because
God, yeah.
What do you always hear? Oh, my God, she's an overnight sensation.
Yes.
Overnight.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, if you talk to that person who the media, and I don't have nothing against media, but we got to just be mindful of what they're saying.
Right.
These overnight sensations ain't overnight, and I
No.
use the word ain't.
Well, no, you know what? This is, it's one of two things. Okay.
Mhm.
Either they're not overnight, like you said. Okay.
Yep.
There's a lot of practice and hardship and
That's
years sometimes of whatever, practicing or doing whatever it is that they do. Okay.
Yep.
Or sometimes that overnight thing is really, it's like a package deal. This person is basically, some people are using this person, the face, to make money. But in reality, basically, they have, I'm sure you've heard of people that write books, but really who writes the book is a ghostwriter. Okay.
It's the ghostwriter. The person has the name. The ghostwriter writes the story. Yep.
Writes a story, and it's like, oh, so-and-so like you said, like a well-known person, somebody that's already maybe got a little bit of and they wrote this book, and in reality, the one that wrote the book is a ghostwriter, and it's like, and somebody that sees that goes, wow, they wrote that book in 2 months. How'd they do that?
Right. They didn't. They didn't. They paid somebody. Exactly.
Yes.
You are stating my point. That is exactly what I was
They
saying.
wrote that book, man. It's like
didn't write that
anybody
book.
that's written, unless you're writing a really short story, is like, that's especially when it's a book. Like, I'm not talking like a short story. I'm talking like a book, like whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You're like, how'd they pull that off? And what? They didn't sleep? But of course,
Yep. I'm gonna give somebody. I'm gonna give everybody that's listening to you a takeaway, and I want them to take this away.
sure.
When you see somebody's highlight reel, when you see that story, don't forget they all had a blooper reel.
Oh, that's great.
Everybody has a blooper reel. You know what
You're right,
You know what
you're
the
right.
blooper reel is, right? You're like, we had a blooper reel when this thing tried to start, and I said, we about to clown on this because life is trying to stop me from doing this, but I'm gonna get through this and do it. That's a blooper reel.
Yes.
Now, everybody has a blooper reel, but what the news and what TV wants to show you is, and I'm gonna add Facebook and Instagram. They want to show you that highlight reel.
Oh, sure.
Everybody always sees the highlight reel. They don't see that blooper reel though, when everybody messing up and they don't. They got the Instagram models.
You know what it is, and also you point out. You know what the problem is also, Fred. A lot of people, they only play the blooper reel in their head.
Exactly. Yep.
It's like every time they're going to do it or maybe return to it, they start like that movie in your head kind of deal, or that internal chatter. And it's that blooper reel. Yes. And they just like.
I mean, you saw it on my face. I was playing my own blooper reel when this thing started, and I'm put it because you were looking at him like, man, this guy, he went outside, he went in his bedroom.
No, it's like,
room,
okay.
He went out. And I said, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna take a deep breath. I said, we're gonna do this. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
then you said,
happen.
send your phone number. I said, 30. Boom, let's do this.
Yeah. No, believe
somebody
me.
Needs to,
I've been to this rodeo a few times where at the very beginning where I got caught, like, because for some reason the internet, the computer, the audio, the visual, something decided that day I'm not going to work. So I learned to have a backup plan.
To do something important. Yeah, it worked all day. Because I always do my homework before these calls, make sure the signal's good, everything's working fine.
Yes.
Everything was working fine. Now all of a sudden, right before this call.
Yes, of course. Oh, you actually have to. Oh, you need clear transmission. Let me.
Oh, we got to screw this up. But there's something good in it. If you can fight through that crap, there's something good on the back.
Yeah, of course. So let me ask you. You in the bio I read. Are you working on new books now?
Yes, I am. I am in the editing phases of the lead up to Scramble.
Okay.
This book's going to be titled Chrome Number 22.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is I'm building a supernatural story, but I take it to the street. And again, like I said, Scramble is the perfect recipe of mass murder and revenge. And I don't want to give away the ending, but there is a lot of discussion about love nurtured and love unnurtured. And in this book, we get the first sightings of love unnurtured, love nurtured. Every choice we make is a cry for love or an act of love. And finally, we get to see this person manifest.
Do you have are you gonna be releasing it this year?
My goal is to get it done before Christmas. Yes, I am.
Okay, so it's gonna be a 2021.
Yep. So it's completely written. Like I said, this is completely written. We're going through the editing phases right now. I want my work to be good, and I always I pick it like a fine-tooth comb. I take command of every sentence, and I want to make sure that when the reader gets to the end of the story, they have a definite understanding of love nurtured versus love unnurtured. And I hint to it in Scramble. Every character in my book is operating out of unnurtured love. I mean, I'm not going to try to put love nurtured in this. It's people do the best they can with the tools they got.
Sure.
And I have a principal who is hell-bent on making education a matter of life and death. And he would do whatever it takes to make sure that his lessons do not fall on deaf ears, even if it means death.
Oh, God.
And we have another character, Lee Brooks. He's another character. He streetwise young kid, African-American youth. And unfortunately, the killer of his parents, who died at the hands of a drunk driver, got released from jail for good behavior. and he ain't having it, and he is on a path of revenge. Now imagine Principal, Ava, who's trying to raise the world's greatest son, and Leangelo all have a taste for eggs. At the same time, a diner in St. Louis, Missouri, burns to the ground. You got scrambled.
So this is that's where their paths cross or bisect.
That's
this is
where
like
everybody paths cross. Yep.
interesting.
My supernatural. Yeah. I don't want to give away the end.
No, but that's a great, yeah, you know what that makes me think of, when you go to these places, whether it's a coffee shop or even a diner, and you got other people there, of course you don't know who they are, but it's like you never know what's really going on with these people, as far as their stories.
Now let me ask you a question about that. So what if you go to this diner and you don't know what these people are going through, but you have a waitress? You ever meet that waitress? And she's a grandmom kind of figure, and she just knows things about you.
Of course, she knows everything about everybody.
Yeah, that's Della. Della is she is the backbone of all three of my stories that I've written.
Okay.
Love nurtured and love unnurtured, and she just knows things about her customers.
Mm-hmm.
She'll never get your order wrong, and she knows her customers, and she just knows something is going on with all three of these people, and she does her best to try to steer them in the right direction towards nurtured love.
Right, you're right, because since she's at that convergence point where they all go in, of course they're living their lives or what's going on with them on their own tracks, but she's that one common point, or that in this case the person who, like you said, is aware of what's going on individually with them.
Yep. Because we all have that person that tries to tell us, and when you go backwards, there was always a person that told you the right way to do things, and we just didn't listen.
Of course.
And she's that person throughout this entire.
Yeah, of course. And that's excellent. That's a great idea. Let me ask, because I want to put a link to your website on the credits of the show, but for my podcast listeners, what is the website that they can go to for more information?
Yeah, www.fredcreates.com.
Okay. You've got it. Fred, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. It has been absolutely wonderful to speak to you.
Yes. If I could say one more thing.
Sure, of course.
I just want to encourage you, because I love your website. I want to encourage you to keep going and keep doing what you're doing. And like I said, don't worry about the peak of the mountain. You enjoy it.
Let me tell you something. It's one of those things that, believe it or not, even when you do overcome little things, it helps it gives you a sense of competency. As when you were talking, we were talking about people that talk themselves out of their own success.
That's it.
And it's like sometimes, everything you overcome, you start getting this internal sense of, I can figure it out. How's that?
That's it. That's it.
Sometimes
we need there needs to be more outlets where people can get on and not talk about I did this, I did that. Let me talk about how can I serve other people? How can I be an encouragement? How can I help someone that's having that thought of something to do, and they need to hop that final hurdle? I want to help people push themselves over that hurdle. And the last thing I want to say is you talked about the dungeon approach. Mm-hmm. I read that, and I want to know about that. So we're going to talk later about that.
Sure.
There needs to be a follow-up.
Sure, absolutely. Which is, by the way, when what we could do is I'll keep track of, visit you on your website, or if you could email me when the book is released, and we could schedule the interview to coincide with the release of your book.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
And that would be fantastic. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the new book release.
That's perfect. And if anybody's listening out there, if you need anything, you can email me. My email's on my website. Tell me what you're doing. If you need that push, if you need someone to tell you that you are worthy and you are of value, you give me an email and you tell me your story. And I want to help anybody, white, black. You know what the times that we are in, and we are in a strange time right now. And I am encouraging people to reach back and pull humanity forward. And if I can do that by example, by helping anybody, I don't care. You let me know your story. I want to hear it. And I want to help, and I want to be an encouragement to you to get through whatever you're going through. You hit me on my website, www.fredcreates.com. And this has been an absolute pleasure. I enjoy talking to you. It's
Thank
been
you so
good.
much, and likewise. Take care.
Yes. All right.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Bye. Thank you, and to you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Oh, there we go. Wow. Wasn't that great to talk to him? You know, people have been who've been following the show for a long time or for a while know that I've always said that I like to talk to new authors, new writers, people that are going out in that field and whether it's writing or anything, because what Fred was talking about, yeah, in some instances, yeah, we're talking about the writing or about other things, but you know what, this can be applied across the board to just about everything that you want to do or want to achieve, or just live your life a certain way with certain results. Okay. As long as sometimes people think, well, does this have to be like, well, something, I want to go to the gym more, or I want to lose weight, or I want this job, or whatever. They make it look like a goal. Okay. Sometimes the goal can just be as simple as the quality of my life. And by this, I don't mean quality as in, how can I say, the value of things, not the materialistic. When I mean the quality of life, I mean the quality of life of you being content and happy with your life, more so than unhappy. All right? And a lot of people, don't get me wrong, I like things. I like nice stuff. All right? But a lot of people fall into that trap of thinking this is the end all be all, and I will be happy when I get the car, the this, the that, whatever, and unfortunately a lot of the culture, especially what we see on TV, drives us towards that perception that our completeness, our happiness is based on acquiring certain things or being seen a certain way because you have these things. A lot of people, especially when they're honest about it, they will tell you it doesn't, that's once you get it or acquire it, it's like a big disappointment. Again, if you want to have these things, whether it's the car or the clothes, for the sake of having it because you enjoy it, that's fine. I'm not saying no. I'm not into austerity, by the way. Everybody's different. But if you're hanging out or holding out thinking, when I get this thing, or when I acquire this thing, or when I am this thing, whatever it might be, then I'll be happy. Then don't do that. And by the way, I'm going to use this real, and this is a very cliched saying, but sometimes even cliche sayings have a lot of truth to them. What was it? It's not the destination, but the journey. My point being that that quality of life, what I'm talking about is your daily life. That you want to get to a state of mind of how you live your life every day, so that more times than not you're content. And by this I don't mean you going around going ha ha ha. And everybody has problems. Sometimes things that we see coming, sometimes it's things that fall in your lap like out of left field. But when you have a mostly content life, you are better able to handle when the adversities or the problems come up. All right? And I think that's what a lot of people, because some people say, you know what, I feel like I'm going from crisis to crisis. All right? And again, and I'm going to insert here, that we have these, what they call people that live on drama. They sometimes, when everything is nice and peaceful, it's like, this doesn't feel right. So they subconsciously, because I'm going to go with the subconscious part of it, they do something or say something to cause that drama and that friction, and that puts them, and then, but, when they talk to a friend, they'll say, oh my God, I never catch a break. It's like everything's always this, and now so-and-so said that, and can you believe she said this, and now this happened? But they overlook the part where, like, what did you do to trigger that? Because nothing was happening. As a matter of fact, everything was really calm. But let's say you're beyond this. Whether you were ever that person or not, you're like one of these persons like, hey, I want to be able to live my life kind of on the contented side. By this, my daily living. And then I have highlights of, of either a vacation, or I'm going to this, or I'm going to do that. And that's like the cherry on top. But the quality of my everyday life is good. I'm happy with it. I'm content. I have things I look forward to. That's what I'm talking about. You know, all these things that he's saying, yeah, those goals are great. You know, like I said, whether it's you want to lose weight, you want to join a team, you want to learn karate, you want to like be a writer, whatever. You know, um, sometimes you have to start like a little bit more basic. All right. Because when you have that certain quality of contentedness in your everyday, day-to-day life, okay, it's so much more easier to believe, and it facilitates you acquiring that thing that you say, okay, I'm going to want or achieve this or whatever. You know, like I said, it might be something small, you know. It might be, you know, to some people, it could be, you know what, I want to take a trip to Europe, but I know that it's going to cost me, maybe you went and you know, did a make-believe itinerary and you realize it's going to cost me $5 or $6 grand to go on this trip that I want to take. All right? And you say, okay, that's really what I want. That's on my bucket list. Or you're not even on your bucket list. It's just something I want to do. And then you say, okay, so what do I need to do? You know, besides getting the time off to go, let's say that's taken care of. Well, I'm going to need to put X amount of money away little by little, and you start working in that direction. Okay, once you have a certain, how can I tell you, optimism that comes with living a certain life day to day, those things facilitate themselves because you see them as being possible. You tell somebody, hey, yeah, I'd like to go to Europe and do this and visit these places and take these tours, but man, it costs 7 or 10,000 or whatever, 6,000, 5,000, whatever you want to go. That's impossible. I'll never be able to get that money apart from my, you know, my regular expenses. Why not? It might take you longer. It might take you less time. But those are the kind of things sometimes that we need to hold on to. And believe it or not, when you have these goals or things that you want and you achieve them, some are bigger, some are smaller. Like I said, it fills you up with this competency of yourself, that you believe in yourself, despite what maybe other people say. Or, you know, let's go with that. I want to take a trip to Europe scenario. Well, you'll have somebody being really well intentioned going, oh, you want to go? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to go and see this place or this cathedral or this castle or this, you know, visit whatever and see the whatever. Oh, yeah, that sounds like a nice trip. This is a pretend conversation with a friend or a family member or a coworker. Oh, that's going to cost a lot of money, right? And you say something like, oh, yeah, it's going to cost me like $7,000 for the round trip. You know, I kind of like put an estimate. $7,000? Oh, man, that's a lot of money. How are you going to do that? Forget it, man. That's a lot. Why don't you go see the Grand Canyon instead? Like, you see what I'm saying? So sometimes you have to have that inner, how can I say, wanting or desire that you could say, oh, yeah, okay. And then it's like, all right, you don't care. It's not your thing. It's my thing. It's my thing. That you pursue it. And you put that little rock on it. And the point I'm trying to make is, if people get sometimes, let's say it's something that's X amount of money. Okay, and they're like, man, that to overcome that's like, oh my God. But if you break it down, if you say, you know what, little by little, even if I put $5 away every week, whatever, $3, whatever, you know, I put a little jar there, I put a little drawer, and I'll just drop stuff and forget about it. You know, and you do it, and there will come a point where it happens in different areas. Remember, I used to do this. I used to work, you know, with my hypnosis. A lot of people, they kind of like defeated themselves. And they blamed that on a lot of other external things. But really the problem was them, that they didn't believe. Or they wanted it to be right away. Or they were like, oh, that's impossible. I'm going to give it, or they lose weight. You know, I had a lot of clients that came to me that wanted to lose weight, you know, and of course I've worked with them in their subconscious, but believe it or not, sometimes the biggest thing they had to overcome, that even though their logical mind was like, yeah, I want to lose 50 pounds, you know, I want to lose 50 pounds, and then when I lose that weight, maybe I'm thinking of doing some nip and tuck, but, you know, the first thing that had to happen was I need to lose this X amount. And they're saying it, yeah, I want to do it. But what's playing up in their head is like, 50 pounds is a lot, man. That's incredible. I'm not going to be able to do that. Oh, no, forget it. No. Especially, let's say, you know how they say that you should lose your weight safely. In other words, an X amount during a certain amount of time, you know, you can't, like, let's say somebody tells them, yeah, you know what, it would take you a year maybe minimum to drop 50 weights safely. A year? Yeah, a year. That's the way you could do it, where, you know, maybe whether you modify your what you're eating, or if you want to incorporate exercise, but, you know, whatever. Let's give you a year at the very minimum. Oh no, a year. Okay, time's gonna go by no matter what. No matter what you do. I remember one time, this is a few years back, I was reading a book about weight loss and things like that, and about motivators, and I can't remember what book it is right now, otherwise I would give it credit. But anyway, there's a story in there about this woman who she was extremely overweight, and of course she started having severe health problems that come with that. And she says that she says I could barely, you know, walking around inside my house, it was like, you know, it was hurting her legs. And she says one day she realized, this is going to kill me. She was still a relatively younger woman. This is going to kill me, and I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. And she realized that she had a lot of weight to lose. And she says, my first goal that I made was that I would walk out to my mailbox. Her mailbox, I guess, was on the edge of by the curb. And he says, that's how I started. I would walk out to the mailbox and pick up the mail. Something that for her, I guess, because maybe, you know, she was having problems with her joints and her knees and stuff because of the weight, was like, it hurt. And she says that's how she started. Eventually, it took her a while. It took her quite a while to where she started then going further and further and further and further out, then maybe walking around the block, you know. And then, you know, it kept going, and of course she started dropping weight because of the exercise component. And like everything, when you see results happening, it inspires you to do more. And at some point later on, she started actually doing 5Ks and marathons and everything. But she started out that the challenge for her initially was to walk from inside her house to the curb where her mailbox was at. And she did it. And by this I mean that sometimes part of what Fred was referring to as far as instant gratification, that could be the thing that kills most dreams. Because if we can't produce it or experience it like right away, it's like we let it go, or we don't try for it, or we don't persist, or we don't practice it. I'm going to tell you something. Even as a hypnotherapist, you know, even if I work with somebody, let's say overcoming their fears or overcoming resistance that they had on a subconscious level to whatever that change was, if that person didn't persist, okay, which by the way, basically what it would be for nothing. All right. I mean, I could help you to overcome the change or the fear of change that would come with whatever this thing that you were trying to do, you know, to modify your behavior in a certain way. But if you didn't go forward with the actions necessary, it's like, okay, you know, I guess you'll be my client forever, or, you know. But my point being that a lot of the things that Fred said made a lot of sense. And look what he talked about, his own writing stuff. That when he just decided, what was it, to, you know, everybody wants to a different drummer. He realized, I'm going to write for myself the story I want to write, how I want to write it, and there it is, boom. And now sounds like he's about to release another book. So I hope you go to his website and check out his work. And you know, I'm hoping to bring him back on here so we could talk about his book and everything else he wants to talk about. And now, talking about books, I am about to, hopefully now in September, release part 2 of this one. I want the glare to hit it kind of like part 2 of this one, which is Hot Dame on a Cold Slab, Film Noir Murders #2. I'm working on it right now as we speak. I'm re-editing, you know, which is something that and I understand you write something and then you go back on it a few weeks later and you're like, and that's all true crime. And it's usually about crimes and things, stuff that happened like between World War One and World War Two. And they're all true, all true. Some made the papers, some didn't make the papers. Most of them, though, if they made the papers, it was just around that time period, and they never carried forward into future. So chances are you might never have heard of them before. And a lot of different outcomes. Sometimes the victim got justified as far as they got killed, but the person that was responsible got caught and served time, and in some cases was executed. Other times that never happened. Sometimes you had victims that were never identified, cases that went unsolved, things of that nature, or actually even murderers that either weren't brought to justice or there was not enough. Like in modern times, there was not enough evidence. Because remember, back then, there was not like a lot of the tools that, like DNA, hey, your DNA is there, so how do you talk yourself out of that one? Back then, if they didn't have enough evidence, there was people basically that walked away from a murder charge. So, it's a little bit of this and that. Very interesting what people got up to in the good old days. And again, if you want to listen to any of the stories of the supernatural, you can go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com. All right, now on there I have links to all the different podcast platforms. But if you want to listen to any of the episodes without commercial interruption, I have a link there where you can either listen to the podcast on your browser or you can download the MP3 file. And of course, I also have links if you want to see the video version of it, of Stories of the Supernatural, on YouTube. And I'm also on different platforms as far as the video work. And again, NightShadeDiary.com and Supernatural Storytime. Those are other podcast series that I have. There's links to that as well. Okay, and as always, I welcome any stories that anybody wants to share with me. Just send them to Marlene at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. And again, thank you so much for coming back every week and joining me and spending this time with me. And again, please come back. I have a lot of great guests lined up. And if you haven't done so already, please like and or subscribe to the show so that you get notification every time a show is coming up. I use, as far as maybe even YouTube, I use the Premiere, which basically will tell you ahead of time when I'm going to release a show. But sometimes I change I release them once a week, but sometimes on different dates, so that way you're sure to catch it. And I'm also considering, at this point, I'm thinking maybe even for Halloween doing a live show. I don't know. I would like to hear from you guys what you think. Going on a live show for Halloween, and let's see what happens. Maybe we could look at some movies or stories or scary or whatever goes, and if you want to send in a question, yep, there's a good chance we're going to be doing that. So again, guys, thank you so much. Take care, and you are all absolutely